Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. My name is Lindia Hayden. I work in the Office for Diversity and Inclusion, also known as ODI. I'm the co-lead with Pamela Abner of the Black Women Leaders Connect resource group. We call ourselves Our Connection. It was established for executive leaders to support one another and to nurture and guide women within our health system as well as our communities. I'll share the website in the chat so you can learn more about the group and its members. We have closed captioning today. I put in the chat already if you want to read subtitles. You can select live transcript, and there's a button that should be on the bottom right, and then you can select show subtitles. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to Maxine Legal. She's our moderator for today. And the event is called Mentorship versus Sponsorship. Maxine is the Director of Patient Experience and Cultural Transformation at Mount Sinai Morningside. So enjoy, Maxine.
Thank you so much, Lindia, and good afternoon, everyone. We're so glad you're here with us. This is actually our third Black Women Leaders Connect ERG panel discussion. Let me make sure I said that right. So our first panel was back in March. The topic we explored then was owning your career. Then we did another one. We had our second panel in June, and the topic was imposter syndrome, fact or fiction. So today, we're here to explore yet another engaging topic. I do want to say thank you again to Lindia. She tends to like to hide behind the scenes, but she is awesome. She's our Director of Disparities and Data Analytics for ODI. It's been a pleasure co-planning these events with her. She's been instrumental in bringing each of these events to reality. So I want to say thank you, Lindia, for this opportunity. I think it's just been great working with you. So kudos to Lindia. So what are we talking about today? We're going to tackle mentorship versus sponsorship. Now, I'll be honest with you, I didn't know that there was a difference. I actually learned from Dr. Harris, who mentioned it at a previous panel discussion. So I'm leaning in, just like the rest of you, to really understand the difference between the two. We have an extraordinary list of panelists today, and I'm sure they're going to provide insight, great dialogue on this topic. So I'm going to introduce them one by one. Ladies, when you hear your name, just give a wave or, an acknowledgement so that we know, everyone knows who you are. Even though your name is on the screen, it's just good to give a wave to say hello to the audience. So I'm going to start with Kimberly Innis is the Senior Director of Nursing at Mount Sinai, Queens. Welcome, Kimberly.
Thank you.
I'm going to go to Michelle Sante Willis. She's a Senior Associate Dean of Medical Education at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai. Hello, Michelle. Great to have you.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
We also have Dr. LaWanza Harris, and she's the Vice President of Quality and Regulatory Affairs for the Mount Sinai Health System. Hello, Dr. Harris.
Hello, everyone.
All right, and then we have Dr. Lynn Richardson. She's a professor of emergency medicine and health science policy and the co-director of the Institute for Health Equity Research at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai. Good afternoon, Dr. Richardson.
Hello, everyone.
All right, so I've introduced you, but I'm such a curious person. I want to know more about you. It's the social worker in me. So I'm going to do something a little fun. I want you guys to share one fun fact about you. Just one. It could be a hobby, a unique talent, something we wouldn't know about you if we saw you in the elevator at Icahn. So can I start with you, Michelle? A fun fact about you?
Absolutely. So a fun fact about me was that growing up and after graduating high school, I wanted to be in the CIA. I wanted to be a CIA operative, and that was what I had intended to do with my career. Obviously, maybe I did.
Yeah, we don't know.
You don't know. But I have made a career in medical education, but that was how I started my life's professional journey, or at least the desire for my life's professional journey.
Well, that's great to know. Everyone kind of watch Michelle, okay? She may or may not be an operative, so let's be careful. Thank you for sharing that, Michelle. Kimberly, a fun fact about you.
I will do something completely outside my career. So I have skydived before in Australia, loved it. We'll do it again many other times, but I will never get on a bike and I will not bungee jump, which all my friends make fun of. Yeah.
So you'll skydive.
Yeah.
But you won't bungee jump or ride a bike.
No.
Oh, there you have it, folks. All right. I love that, Kimberly, and I appreciate your courage because I would not skydive, but I'll ride a bike any day. But thank you for sharing that. That's great. All right, Dr. Harris, fun fact about you.
Yes, so for me, I'll go back as a theme of what Michelle brought up. I wanted to be an entertainer. I wanted to be a singer, and that's what I did, partly in addition to being, really good in academics. But I had a manager, I was competing, I was doing all of that, but I really wanted to be a physician. And I was like, well, I'll become a doctor just in case the singing career doesn't work out, but I never realized it would take this long. So, that was my goal. And I still have that entertainer in me. So my son knows that if there's some music that comes on or a video, I'm always performing. So that was my dream, but I am living the dream right now.
Someone put in the chat, Dr. Harris, have you or do you sing to any of your patients? Just curious how that question comes up.
No, I have not. The last time I actually performed was when I was in medical school, and one of my colleagues was like my manager, if you will. So I have not done that. I do miss it, but it's an instrument. You don't use it, it's not the same. So I do have to acknowledge that. But the performer, entertaining is always there. And that's the only time I really get jealous is when someone is on stage.
I understand that. I'm a singer too. Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Harris. That's wonderful. Dr. Richardson, a fun fact about you.
Yes, well, such a talented group. I can't sing it all, but I'm actually a pretty good ballroom dancer. And one of the, there were many hard things about COVID for all of us, and especially as an emergency physician working on the front lines. But one of the hardest things for me was all of the dancing stopped, right? Like ballroom dancing is like the anti-COVID activity.
Right.
You're close together, your faces are closed, you're touching. And so it completely stopped for a year and a half. It has started back up. And so I am dancing again. Carefully, but dancing again, and that makes me happy.
Wow, I love it. Thank you so much, Dr. Richardson. Shauna says in the chat, we should have a Black Women's Connect ERG talent show. We can kick it off with Kimberly jumping out of a plane. We can have our operative here do security, and we have our vocalist and our ballroom dancer. I mean, it'll be awesome. It'll be great. That's a good idea, Shauna. All right, ladies, thank you so much for opening up, being transparent, and having a little fun around what your fun facts are. I'm a music enthusiast, in case you were wondering. I love music like Dr. Harris. I actually sing as well. And so I cannot get enough of music and different genres as well. That's my fun fact. I actually sing in a group with my two daughters. I sing tenor, and the middle one handles the alto and the little one handles soprano. So we have a lot of fun. So that's my fun fact for today. Now, we did want to poll the audience to find out whether or not they know the difference between a mentor and a sponsor. So it just popped up right now on your screen. If you guys would be so kind as to give us an answer. Do you know the difference between a mentor and a sponsor? Single choice only. You can put yes, no, or unsure. All right, so I'll give you guys a few minutes to do that. We have about 105 people in the room today, so it may take us a little while to get that number. So we'll wait just a few seconds. All right, and I want to move on to the definition, but I can't do that until I actually have some idea of how many people have answered. And don't be afraid. Answer truthfully, because like I said earlier, I didn't know the difference either. I learned that from Dr. Harris at a previous meeting or panel where she said, hey, there's a difference between the two. And that kind of set me on a journey myself to find out, hey, what do they actually mean?
And if you're looking it up so you can answer yes, don't bother.
Yes, Dr. Richardson, we have the advantage of Google at this point where people can do that on the fly. All right. I see different things in the comments as well. Someone said sponsor provides financial support in your professional development. Someone said, I thought I was sure until you said there was a difference. I know, I'm with you, Arlene. I was just like you. We have someone who says, I believe a sponsor gets you in the room, while a mentor can also do that, but they also help you navigate that room effectively. All right, I'm some great insight in the chat. Let's close down the poll and let's see how we did. All right, so if we can share the results, let's see what we got here. So 47% of you said yes, 16% said no, you don't know the difference, and 37% of you guys are unsure. Oh, well, I have good news. You guys are in the right place today. All right, this is exactly what we're going to unpack. I appreciate your honesty in terms of answering that question. It's okay to be unsure, right? Because we're all here to learn. So with that being said, I'm going to read the definition for mentors and sponsors. You guys are free to disagree or agree with what I have here. I actually stole this from Lindia. She says, while mentors have their benefits, sponsors have more impact. A sponsor will invest in you and help you advance, while a mentor will give ideas on how you might advance. Think of it this way. A mentor is like a coach, a guidance counselor, or a therapist, while a sponsor is like the college admissions officer or executive who steers you to your goal. Sponsors use their power and influence to speak on your behalf. So right off the top, ladies, what do you think about that definition? Thoughts on what's here? Think it's accurate? Is it helpful? What are your thoughts?
I think,
Go ahead,
me,
Michelle. Yes.
I think for me, it's helpful to think about a sponsor can also be a mentor, right? But your mentor is not typically your sponsor.
Can you say that one more time?
I think a sponsor can also be your mentor. People that put you in the space, people that you go to, that you see, that you'd like to emulate. I mean, I think, however, mentors are not always sponsors, right? So like I would say from my perspective, Lynn Richardson has been a mentor of mine, even though she may not realize that relationship that I've had with her. I've looked up to her. I've seen her in the workforce, as a professional woman, as a parent, those things, and our relationship over the course of decades. She has been a mentor to me, but has probably, never thought to say, herself as a mentor or a sponsor for me, but I have seen her as a mentor in that space. And so I think it's a personal choice, and sometimes a mentor can be a sponsor, but oftentimes sponsors are not your mentors.
Thank you. I love that, Michelle. Anyone? Go ahead, Dr. Harris.
I would agree with that simply because a sponsor is usually someone who's in a senior position who has the ability to be able to open doors for you. They're the ones who will talk about you, as the phrase that was used with me was that they keep your name on their tongue as opportunities come up. So a mentor may not be in that position to be able to do that. And so that's why I agree what Michelle is saying as well.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Anything else to add, Dr. Richardson or Kimberly?
I do agree with both what Dr. Harris and Michelle stated. I do feel also that your mentor could have a connection to your sponsor, and they could also be your plug. So although the mentor may not have the ability to give you that promotion or put you in that seat, they're able to talk about you to that sponsor, because you may not have a relationship with that sponsor to be able to get you where you need to go.
Well, I find this very interesting, and thank you, Michelle, for your kind words. I do think that there are multiple definitions, and there are things other than sponsors and mentors, right? There are role models, which is more how I would characterize the relationship you described with me, Michelle. Coming from the research arena, for me, mentors actually a longer and more intense and ongoing relationship. The counterpart of mentor is protege. And so for me, mostly being on the mentor end of those kinds of relationships, I do invest a lot in the people I'm mentoring. I do feel that obligation to use my my position, my prestige, my power, my resources on their behalf. Sponsorship, I think of as a more contained relationship. So it may be to get a certain position, to accomplish a certain project. It may be more transient. I think that it certainly can have both can have very powerful impacts on people's lives. And I also agree with Michelle that it is possible that there can be elements of both in a relationship. You know, I did not have the advantage of having sort of the classic mentor early in my career, but I do think there were people who helped me in my career who are what I think of as sponsors, but it wasn't that intensely personal mentoring relationship that I now have actually with a number of junior people. So for me, it's much more of an investment to take on somebody as to be their mentor. It's more of a commitment. Whereas sponsorship, I often can be helpful in ways that don't take a lot of time and energy on my part, but can be very impactful at a certain point in people's careers. And so I look for ways to do that. So, and I'm not sure it's that important. I do think when you're young, you need to understand how to cultivate both kinds of relationships, how you find mentors, and how you make yourself known to potential sponsors. And maybe that's more important than figuring out which is which.
I love that, Dr. Richardson. So let's dive into that right now, because what I'd like to do, and we can shake it up, is let's talk about mentorship. All right, and then we'll switch gears and we'll talk about sponsorship. There's so much in the chat. I do want to get to that as well. But why don't we start off with mentorship? All right, I stole a few definitions. Mentors give you perspective. Sponsors give you opportunities. I saw that online. I saw another one that says mentors advise, sponsors act. So mentorship, let me open this up to you guys. Have you had a mentor? Well, I think Michelle kind of answered that question when she mentioned Dr. Richardson. How did you find your mentor and what were the benefits?
So I will say that when I mentioned Lynn in the discussion, it was more in a soft way, but I will concur with her. I did not have mentors early on in my career. And I'm glad that she brought up the research environment too, because there is prestige in mentorship in research. Like you as a researcher are revered and renowned based on the people that you have brought through your research environment or your lab or your clinical research environment and who have gone on to do things. And so I think we're a little late to this party, if you will. Wow. And I'm hoping that we can definitely build out capacity, especially here. I mean, when I started at Mount Sinai in 1990, there was one Black female administrator. There were no Black men. And now here we go into this environment now. And I will say in certain domains in some of our infrastructure environments, whether it's HR, finance, facilities, support services, there are very few men of color, almost none, and women, and very few women of color, even at the executive levels. And so I'm grateful for this connection to have mentorship, or to even have moments like this where people can eventually reach out to me to become a mentor. So I think it's really important to get started early, and it's important to have meaningful relationships, not episodic relationships as mentors or as sponsors, in my opinion. And so I try to be committed to that space really devoutly.
But thank you for your honesty. And I'm sorry, Dr. Richardson, did you want to say something?
No, I was gonna
jump in. Go ahead, Kimberly.
I was gonna jump in and say, so I didn't find my mentor. My mentor found me, which was very interesting. And from that moment on, I started doing what she did, reach out to others. So she saw my bio online.
I love that.
Correct. I definitely started to play it forward after our relationship developed. She saw my bio online, and she was a CNO for a prominent magnet nursing organization, hospital, sorry, I should say, and reached out to me to ask to have coffee. Just read my bio and said, I think your bio is great. Can we meet up to have coffee? So a CNO of a big organization reaching out, I couldn't understand why she wanted to reach out to me. Why would she want to speak to me? I wasn't a leader at the time. So from that moment on, we developed a great mentorship relationship, and I started doing the same thing. So not waiting for others to, ask me to be their mentor, I reach out as well and say, I would like to mentor you. Would you be interested in talking about it? But that's something that was very unique and I think don't happen. So I start paying it forward, and that's something I intentionally do when I see people that need mentorship or want to be developed, because a lot of times it's a maneuver over the relationship, it could be very difficult or complex. And
Right.
people don't know how to ask or how to reach out or how to start that conversation about what mentorship is,
Right.
you know, or understanding the uniqueness or the complexities in the relationship, which it doesn't have to be, but
Right.
how to just start to say, I need help, I want a mentor. So I purposefully reach out to others to ask, hey, do you have a mentor? Are you interested in mentorship? Because she started that for me, and I'm very grateful.
That's beautiful. Kimberly, you said it was a bio that was posted online. So in
Yes.
many ways, you were visible in
Yeah,
that instance, right?
Well, it wasn't not necessarily that visible,
Okay,
but she just happened to just, you know, reading something and found the bio and just reached out and said, I would like to have coffee with you. You don't know me. She didn't say who she was. She just stated she found my bio online. She told me her name. I Googled her, and then I was pretty impressed and couldn't understand why someone at that level wanted to meet me. And we had coffee at Panera's, and our relationship has developed over the years.
That's just history. Why wouldn't she want to meet you? You're fantastic. Dr. Harrison, Dr. Richardson,
Yeah.
thoughts on mentorship? Do you have a mentor? Have you been a mentor? What are the benefits? What are your thoughts on just mentorship in general?
Well, I certainly have been a mentor to a number of people, and I agree with what was said, that it's like being a teacher and educator, right? As some of your greatest joys are watching those people go out, succeed in their own careers, and knowing that you had a part of that. It can be quite a close relationship. They really become professional progeny, the people that you mentor. But as I said, I never had sort of that classic mentor who really sort of took me under their wing and helped me prosper in my career. And I did find that I had to try to get different kinds of advice and support and information from different people. And I really recommend that to those of you who aren't fortunate enough to have someone, as was done with Kimberly, to reach down, tap you on the shoulder and say, come, I am going to help you in your career. You need someone in your own discipline who really understands the things you need to know to do your job well and to get to the next step. You need to have someone who perhaps has the same kind of family situation as you do. You know, I think it's very important for women, especially if you have children, to have a relationship with more senior women with children who can model for you how you navigate that part of your life, even if they're not in your content area, even if they're not going to be able to help you with content knowledge, they can help you in terms of how do you organize your life. So getting different things from different people, I think, is a very effective approach if it's not sort of all given to you as it sometimes is. There's an interesting question in the chat about what do you look for as a mentor, and maybe that's something that it would be good to talk about, because I am approached frequently by people, I think, who would like to develop a relationship with me. And there are some things I look for before I invest a significant amount of time and energy in them. But let me let some of the other panelists speak to the question at hand. I think you're on mute.
I want to know exactly what those things are.
Oh,
So
you're not going to let me. Okay, I don't want to monopolize conversation. Well, I think one thing, frankly, is perseverance. And I want someone who wants to be helped, who wants to take advantage of what I have to offer. And so you take a student, for example, and Michelle has sent me many students over the years who are looking for a research mentor. And I will take a meeting with any Sinai student. All you have to do is email me and you can get on my calendar. And we talk about what it is you're interested in, and maybe have a project in mind, or you're trying to figure out what to do. And I will usually give some advice, some simple next steps. And then I wait. Now, about half of them never come back. Okay, so it's over. Of the half who come back, half of them come back and want to repeat the same conversation we have because they haven't taken the next steps that I gave to them.
Wow.
And that's not going anywhere. That's not going to progress.
Wow.
But the ones who actually took what I gave them
But it's action.
acted on it, and now they come back with more questions for the next step. Now I'm in, because they showed that perseverance. They're willing to put in the time and effort, and that's someone who really is going to flourish if I invest some time and energy in them. So that's sort of my process to decide who actually am I going to mentor of all the people who approach me. They self-select.
I do agree with Dr. Richardson. I think someone that takes initiative is very important. And with all my mentees, we develop goals, and it's 1 month, 6 month, 1 year, 5 year. And each time we meet, we talk about what are we doing. And I give a lot of guidance regarding how to accomplish these goals, and we measure them. We actually have this, a few of my mentees are on here. I would say, give me the list of all the things you accomplished in the last 6 months, because a lot of times they don't realize what they've done. But I think taking the initiative is very important. Some mentees expect you to do all the work and don't understand it's a partnership relationship. And when you give guidance, you're supposed to come back and say, this is what I've done. So part of that, we sit and outline specific goals. Where do you see yourself in 5, 10 years, but also how we're going to get there within the next 6 months or 1 year. And we do reflect back on that. And each time we meet, there need to be a conversation regarding where we are in reaching these particular goals.
Wonderful. Dr.
Follow up
Harris.
and follow through.
Thank you. Dr. Harris, thoughts on mentorship? Ladies said a lot of things in terms of what they look for in a mentee, what the relationship is like. There should be some engagement, right? Charting people's progress. Any other thoughts you want to add to that?
I agree with everything that has been said. I do want to say, I think I have been in a unique situation for mentorship, and also when we talk about sponsorship, that I've had a mentor throughout my entire career. I do have what I consider a wise counsel. That's what I call them. I still keep in touch with them. The mentoring has happened organically, where I'm having a casual conversation and someone notices something and they're like, look, why don't we continue to meet? Why don't we set up some regular times? And so I've noticed that they have made that investment. Other way that I have gotten mentors is I do what I call cold calls. I have an idea of what I aspire to. So I'm always looking at people's bios, and I will email someone and say, hey, I read about you. I'm interested to learn more about your career. Could we have a conversation? I've done that within the organization that I was previously in, which was at New York Presbyterian in Columbia. And I've done it outside of the organization as well. I do think it is important to have a mentor. What I would say is that there doesn't have to be concordance. It is important to be able to speak to someone who looks like me, but the majority of my mentors have not been Black, African American, Caribbean American, just of the African diaspora. They have been white men, and that's because I am a physician that works in healthcare. It's just nature of the design. And would I like to have a female mentor? Yes. A mentor who, a female mentor who was a woman? Yes. And I do have some now, but early in my career, I did not. And so I think what is important is that if you meet someone who is truly interested in your development, that is the connection. And, but to talk to, someone had brought up, having a mom, that would have been great to sort of bounce some ideas initially. But I do think it's important to do both. You have to advocate for yourself. You have to reach out to people. The ones that say yes, those are the ones you want to connect with. The ones that kind of hem and haw, those are not the ones that you want to connect with. So it is beneficial for your growth. A mentor is someone who provides guidance. I do consult my wise counsel, and I just met with a mentee right before this call, a mentee I still have from being at New York Presbyterian in Columbia. And, it's important to maintain those relationships. I call it, relationship building, because one of my mentors said that to me. What she said to me was that you know exactly when you're going to get your hair done. You make an appointment. So She said, what I do is I look at within my network and I decide every month what person I'm going to connect with, because you have to build that relationship over time. So pre-COVID, I was meeting with people regularly just to grab coffee, just to have dinner. And it's building those relationships because opportunities happen informally. And then you can get some wise advice from people.
Wow.
So maintaining that is critical. So you have to be intentional as well. So, I do understand that we don't have the opportunities for mentorship as always, but we have to advocate for ourselves and reach out like the others said.
I
Thank you.
completely,
Love
yeah,
that.
I
ahead.
completely agree with that. And you do have to be very proactive. I like what you said about actually making a plan and sort of targeting people. If you go to a room or you're in a meeting and you only talk to the people you are missing an opportunity. And for those of us who are introverts, as I am, this is a learned behavior, because I could easily sit in the corner and watch people and not interact with anybody. But I did have people who coached me that was not what I was supposed to be doing, especially if I'm in a professional meeting or a conference.
Right.
I am supposed to be seeking out people I don't know. Maybe I've read their stuff. Maybe it's somebody you'd like to meet, or maybe it's just somebody made an interesting comment, at one of the sessions, and make those relationships. And you should do the same thing within your own organization. The networking is key. And lots of opportunities have come to me that seem somewhat serendipitous.
Mm-hmm.
When I trace it back, it was sort of a very casual connection that led to a conversation,
Mm-hmm.
that led to my being on their mind when an opportunity came up. And then they acted as a sponsor, and when I trace those back, it's like amazing how often it's not something that you really planned. I didn't know that result would come from that contact. So you just keep making those contacts and building those relationships, and then you see what comes.
Yeah, I agree with everything the panelists have said. Really sage advice for myself and for all of those who are joining in on the call today. I will also say there's no shame in saying that this mentor is not quite for me. Going down the road and having met with someone and realizing, our ideals are not aligned,
Right.
Not bad nor good, just different.
Right.
And that, take it in the moment for what it was worth, right?
Right.
Getting you to the point where you kind of know what you don't want.
Yep.
Right.
And be upfront and honest with your mentor. Be able to say, thank you very much. I've appreciated this support. But you don't have to, everyone doesn't have to be your mentor. So make sure that you find a good fit.
Right.
Make sure that you find someone who can help you see the world through your own eyes, not through their eyes. And I think that is something that sometimes gets lost when people try to mentor, in that they think that the person is really looking to relive their space through their own experience. And the reality
Vicariously, yeah.
Yes, then the reality is as a mentor, we should be stepping back so that the person can see themselves through their own lens.
Love that.
With the space and perspective that you can offer through experience. And so I think that that's also a very important point as we start talking about how to create a mentorship capacity, both for yourself and for your mentees.
I love that. And it also gives us permission. It's freeing, because you can outgrow a mentor, right? That is a possibility. They were with you through a certain point of the journey, and then, it's time for you to move on. You're grateful, you're thankful. They helped you tremendously, but maybe you're turning a new page, and maybe you need additional support or differing types of insight to that end. I want to wrap up our mentorship side before we shift into sponsorship. Ladies, do you feel like we've defined mentorship? You guys have done a great job defining it, in my opinion, and also talking about how you were able to find mentors yourself. So for some of you, they found you. For some of you, it happened over dinner. For some of you, you approached someone and just said, hey, I'd love to get your feedback or your insight around these types of things. So there you have it, all right, in terms of finding a mentor, how people have done it. And then I love what you said, Dr. Richardson, right? That introvert versus extrovert, right? A lot of us we're closed off, we're afraid to ask. But a lot of what you said, I think, is finding that comfort zone and jumping out of it. And I think being able to find a mentor, that's an important thing that you should be able to do.
Yes.
All right, so I think we're good with mentorship. I want to shift gears a little bit now, with your permission. And I want to talk a
If I
little bit
could just
about.
say one last
Oh,
thing,
please.
Maxime,
Go ahead.
because I had this thought when
Yes.
the last comment, that if you do it right, the people who you are mentoring become your colleagues, and the
Ooh,
relationship ripens into something different.
beautiful.
They do grow up. It's just like children, you know, and learning to let go and learning when to step back and let them fly. And then changing the way you interact with them so you acknowledge them as colleagues is very important.
I gotta go in there. Hold on, Dr. Richardson. I love what you said, because that means that being a mentor requires you to be someone who is self-aware, right? And who's confident, because if I'm mentoring someone and I mentor them up to being my colleague, I welcome that in. I welcome them in
That's
that
right.
space. I'm not
That's
threatened by them.
success.
I'm proud of them. Exactly.
That's right. That's success.
Love it. Love it. All right. Well, with your permission, I'm going to shift into sponsorship. All right. So I'm going to throw it out to the room. Have you had a sponsor? How'd you find your sponsor? All right. And what were the benefits to having a sponsor? Your thoughts. Anyone can jump in at any time.
So I've had a sponsor, and I didn't realize until I had a sponsor that there was a difference between a mentor and a sponsor. And as I had mentioned earlier, the difference was, I mean, the other people may have also been in senior positions, but this is someone who took a very active role in my development, my professional development. So much so, we met every week, Monday at 6 o'clock while he was driving home.
Nice.
You know, and
Structure. I like that.
It was such a great sort of mentoring sponsorship to give me advice. But what made this person a sponsor was that whenever there were opportunities, whether or not there was a national collaborative or something he thought I should be a part of, he said, look, I think this will be good for you. And even so, when it came to advancing my career, this person created a position for me that did not exist. And that initial creation led to everything else that has happened.
Wow.
But it was very intentional to say, look, this doesn't exist. This is a need we have. I think you'll be great. Would you be interested? So I just knew that this person always had me, was talking about me in the other room at the table, right? Because they were at the table. They were very senior. So, and again, this wasn't someone who looked like me.
Right.
And which goes back to my point where they don't have to look like you, and in most instances they're not.
Right.
But that's why it's so important that when we get in these positions that we're able to give back and do the same thing as well, to pay it forward. So to have a sponsor as an African-American woman, as a woman who's African-American, is rare. We are usually not privy to that, to have that type of relationship, because those type of relationships can happen informally. We're not in those settings. We're not men, right? We're not white men at that. And people also have to not only see that you are talented, but can see you in that role. And if they cannot picture that, because whatever lens they may bring, you are not going to benefit from having a sponsor. Also has to be a level of visibility that you're able to interact with them. And so that's another disadvantage in terms of why we may not have sponsors, which is a completely different level. And I have seen it play out in so many ways that you can tell that someone is being sponsored. You can tell that because of how they move through the organization. And like I said, I have been very fortunate to have had a sponsor that helped to put me in that position and helped me to navigate. And then other people saw that. And then they also had the same perception. I mean, listen, I believe my work speaks for itself, but it does mean something when you have someone in the room who's speaking highly on your regard, then everybody else who's also senior will also believe the same thing and open other doors for you.
I agree.
Dr. Harris, I'm sorry. So forgive me, Michelle. Dr. Harris, you may have said it, but I want to make sure I didn't miss it. You said that person found you, they came to you, or was that someone that did they kind of, similar to Kimberly's story with her mentor, did they find you? And if they did, what do you think made them say, hey, I want to invest in Dr. Harris? What do you think that?
So I was a part of a fellowship program.
Okay.
And this person was assigned to me as a mentor for the fellowship program. And they could have kept it as that, but they did not. So they took it to a different level. And I know this only because of the experiences of others. And so they turned it to where it was from being my mentor to now they were my sponsor. And they, so it happened sort of organically, like I said, but then it was a structured program where there was that mentoring program. But it was, I would say, the most beautiful relationship I have ever had.
Wow.
Because of the wisdom they were imparting that I carry and share with my mentees at every opportunity.
Wonderful.
It was just pearls that, I will forever be grateful for. And the opportunity that they opened for me. Now, mind you, I'm not saying everything was always hunky-dory because, they eventually became my boss, but I always knew they had my best interest in mind, meaning that the feedback was always constructive. It was so that I could continue to grow. And this person, and I'll say it, who was a white male, said, look, things are going to be different and more challenging for you because this is the good old boys. And you got to learn how to navigate through.
And he said that to you?
Yeah, he said that to me.
Yeah.
Just very upfront. It's the truth.
Right.
It's the truth.
But he pointed that, okay.
Yeah. So anyway, I will always cherish that.
I appreciate that.
That relationship, because I would say it's definitely made me who I am.
Wow.
And he was a great person. He passed away.
Okay.
And he touched a lot.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Harris. A lot of nuggets there, right? I appreciate the fact that your sponsor was honest and transparent. He definitely painted the picture of what the challenges were going to be just based on being a female and being of color. I think that's great. Michelle, I feel like you wanted to say something about sponsorship. Go ahead.
Well, I was glad that Luanza spoke about a fellowship experience that translated into that, because I think that right now in this environment that we're in now, that there are lots of opportunities for us to create really formalized relationships for women and men of color, Black women and men in particular, to have access to spaces and environments where ordinarily we may not have access to. And I think that that's a really great vehicle to identify. So encouraging people on the panel to reach out. ODI has a wonderful administrative fellowship program. Perhaps your professional environment has a program similar to that. Reach out to them, speak to being sponsors and mentors for folks, even if you don't have access to fellowship programs and where you are, because I do think that it can be really hard and daunting. I think that both Kimberly and Luanza have had remarkable experiences where people took them in. The majority of us have not had to do that, and so I'm hoping that we can really think about ways to expand access and to further participate in areas or programs that are designed to create this experience for people, because it can be really hard to reach out to people that you don't know or that you're interested in. It does take a certain personality type to be able to feel comfortable doing that. And so for those who don't have that, I encourage people to on both sides.
Okay. I want to stay a little bit longer on sponsorship, just to make sure that we've defined the two. Any other thoughts on what a sponsor is and what they've done for you guys, what they've done for you ladies, I should say. Dr. Richardson or Kimberly? I have a couple of definitions, but I want to hear from you guys.
So for me, I didn't know there was a difference between sponsorship and mentorship.
Like me.
I was completing my DMP degree. And for me, it wasn't as transparent as Luann said. I actually had a sponsor who had a seat at the table until opportunities started rising. My name started being brought up, or, you know, Kimberly, you should do this. So sometimes you may not necessarily have that relationship as Luann was fortunate to have, but you're able to be placed in situations or placed at certain tables because your name was suggested by your sponsor. So I think the relationships develop differently, and that's something important to acknowledge. And to also acknowledge that your sponsors sometime may not know you as well. And from one sponsor, you could develop many other sponsors that are in the room. So again, my relationship with my sponsor was a little bit different than Luanza. And I had to identify it later and said, oh my, this is my sponsor. And then being able to have that conversation. Because they're putting you places, you're putting you in those rooms. When they think of projects, you're the one they're thinking of, and call you into the project, but you may not have a formal conversation and say, you know, you're my sponsor.
Right.
So that's something important to acknowledge. And it has also taught me how to sponsor others.
Right.
So I'm actually actively developing that skill to say, how do I sponsor someone? And learning how to do that.
Yeah.
Again, paying it forward, which is very important.
Absolutely. And I say it again, I was like you, Kimberly. You know what book I picked up? And Lindia recommended the book, and I started listening to it on Audible. It's a book from a woman named Sylvia Ann Hewlett. And the topic is Forget a Mentor, Find a Sponsor. And I think she does a really great job in delineating between the two and gives some awesome advice and guidance as well. So I don't know if Lindia can drop that in the chat. Great book. Definitely check it out. Dr. Richardson, I felt like you wanted to say a little bit more about sponsorship.
Well, I never never really had a real mentor, and never had the kind of sponsor certainly that Lawanda or Kimberly spoke about. But I do feel like there have been people who have given me opportunities in my career. Again, it's more short-lived rather than an ongoing relationship, but sometimes it's repetitive. And I think if you do get an opportunity that was created by a sponsor, and sometimes you don't even really know who it was who created the opportunity. Suddenly you're invited to do something and you can't really track back, like, how did they get to me? Right. But if you do that and you perform well, then the sponsor notices and it's like, oh, that went well. I'm going to give her another opportunity. And so it is this being given the opportunity and then seizing the moment to do well. Yep. Will create more and more opportunities. I don't want people to feel like, well, it's just, if you're lucky enough to have a sponsor, you know, they just paved the way and everything is great. You have to do the work. You have to deliver, because they have put their prestige on the line for you. They've made that recommendation. Right. If you go in there, you don't do well, that makes them look bad. Exactly. Not only do they never sponsor you again, but no one they know will ever give you an opportunity like that again. So go in and get it done. And as was also said, I look for opportunities to be a sponsor yourself. I often get lots of information about programs and fellowships and so on. And when I get that, I don't just delete it because it's not aimed at me. I think about, do I know anybody who this might be good for? And I send it to them. It only takes a minute, but some of those have really developed into important things in those people's lives. So you just have to acquire this habit of thinking about, again, how can I pay it forward? How can I make sure that there are more people looking like me seated at the table? And so the higher up I go, the more intentional I am about how to raise all of us up together. And I just think we have to do that for each other all the time. And I love these come every day.
Yeah, I love what you said, Dr. Richardson, right? In terms of, if someone's going to carry your name into a room, you have to prove yourself. You know, you mentioned a project. If you do a project, I'm going to invest. You know, if I give Kimberly a project and she knocks it out the park, I'm going to lean in and say, wait a minute here. That's right. You know, let me keep Kimberly on the tip of my tongue. And if that happens consistently, then why wouldn't I? Why
That's
wouldn't a
right.
sponsor want to go into the room with that person on the tip of their tongue? Because that benefits them as well. Michelle, I'm gonna let Michelle make a comment, and then I have to go into the Q&A. But Michelle, please go right ahead.
Yeah, I don't want to interrupt that because I think it's really important
go
for us
ahead.
to get the Q&A. But I do want to also speak to something that might be kind of underneath the surface. You know,
Yes.
for so long, we have been kind of restricted in trying to promote Black people and Blackness, feeling like if you are Black and you promote other Black people, or that you sponsor other Black people, or you're always bringing up other names of Black people, that might be viewed in some kind of way. And is there really room for all of us at the table? And so I just want to speak to that, because I think that has been kind of, I'm not even gonna call it a glass ceiling, I'm gonna call it a concrete ceiling that many of us have worked underneath. And I just want to be explicit and say very directly that we need to blow that up. That it's okay if we bring Black folk up with us. It's okay if we reach out and make sure that there are more people that look like us. And that is not a negative, and there is space and room for all of us. And so I really think it's important that we speak to those barriers and speak explicitly both to ourselves, amongst ourselves, and to our colleagues, our non-Black colleagues, and say it's important. And that's important to us.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'm going to jump into the Q&A. I think we may have answered some of these questions already, but I hope I say the name right. Tanji says, I got on late, but would love to see this in its entirety. I have good news, Tanji. Once it is completely downloaded, this video will be available on our YouTube channel. So you'll be able to watch this complete panel discussion. So coming soon, we'll share the link on LinkedIn. We'll also share it in other platforms as well. Chanel says, Dr. Richardson, as an introvert, does the learned behavior of reaching out ever become easier?
Definitely. Definitely. Because it's like anything else. If you practice, you get good at it.
Yeah.
Mainly you have to overcome your own sort of misgivings. A lot of it is feeling like, you know, it just takes so much energy for me to approach somebody I don't know and start a conversation. But when you start to see the returns, you see it as like work you have to put in, and it does get easier because you get better at it.
Absolutely. And putting yourself in those, right? Going to networking events and doing things like that also contribute to getting that practice in, if you will.
Constant effort. Don't just go up to your room and order room service. Go to the reception and talk to people.
Dr. Richardson knows my inner secrets. Okay, let's go to the next question. Is it important for the mentee or sponsor or protege to come to the table with a specific ask or goal? I'll say that again. Is it important for the mentee to come into this, right? They say mentors have mentees. I read that sponsors have proteges. So is it important for the mentee and the protege to come to the table with a specific ask or goal? What are your thoughts on that? Anyone?
I like when people come with a specific idea of how I can be helpful.
Okay.
It's hard if it's sort of they're young and they're, you know, energetic and they have really no idea what they want or where they're going. I mean, taking that on is a huge commitment, as opposed to, you know, Dr. Richardson, I read that you did X, Y, Z. I wonder if you could help me with this and that. I love that. So yes, if you can come with a specific ask, you're much more likely, because it's easier for the person you're approaching to be helpful.
I agree.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to keep moving. We're in the lightning part of the panel. Kim, you mentioned that you reach out to people to mentor them. I think you answered this. How do you identify your mentee? Do you have specific criteria? And then there's a follow-up to that. How many people would you mentor at a time?
I think right now I have about 10 mentees, which is a lot. But I look for people that have goals in mind, specific goals. It really helps me to guide them to the next path. People that take initiative. Someone, I think also to have that kind of comfort, because you kind of have to make sure that you're comfortable with the mentor, your mentee and mentor relationship, that you both are comfortable with each other. So I want to make sure that you're comfortable, but I'm also comfortable in directing you.
Okay. Shanna asked a question in the chat, but I think Dr. Harris answered this. People often seek out multiple mentors, but I've often heard sponsor referred to singularly. Do you believe sponsors should be sought out? And do you believe we often need multiple sponsors? Dr. Harris, I seem to remember you saying you have more than one. I believe you call them your wise counsel. It is okay. It's people have more than one sponsor. And that, what are your thoughts?
Absolutely.
Hold on, Dr. Harris, I can't hear you very well.
That was
Go
in
ahead.
reference to mentors.
Oh, my bad. Okay.
Council of mentors. Sponsors, you can have more than one. I have more than one at the same time. So I don't think that there's a right or a wrong to this.
Okay.
Listen, if people are interested in your development, they think you're talented, they're going to want to learn.
Why not?
For the very reason that Lynn said, that at some point you become their colleague, you're contributing to their organization or to their goals. So there's a win-win situation here.
Absolutely.
So there's nothing wrong having more than one. What are you going to do? You're going to say no to someone that says,
I wouldn't.
hey, you'd be great for this.
I have enough.
Yeah, listen, I'm being cheeky here, but the point is, and the answer is, you can have more than one, but I definitely
Absolutely.
recommend having a wise council of different people who you consult, you talk to, who have different backgrounds because they have different perspectives.
Yeah. And some of these can be peers. It doesn't necessarily have to be someone who's above you.
Right.
There is peer mentoring. And sometimes, your colleagues at the same level can open up opportunities. You can really help each other along the way. So it can happen at all levels.
Yeah, and I would like to say directly, do it.
Do
Yes,
it.
106 people on this call. Do it. Become a sponsor, become a mentor. Do it.
And I like to say that it's important also to give examples of what these relationships are. So if you have a successful mentorship and sponsorship relationship, it's important to highlight what made these relationships successful. Even connect mentees together to talk about the relationships. I've done that before, and it has really been very successful. So it's important to talk about what a mentor and a mentee is, but give examples and show those examples of what the success looks like.
Love it. Anything else? Because I'm about to wrap it up. So if you guys have anything else to add, please go right ahead. All right. All right, ladies, I want to say thank you. This was a wonderful, wonderful dialogue and discussion. I kind of feel like there needs to be a part 2 because it was so robust, but be that as it may, we thank everyone for engaging and being a part of our panel discussion this afternoon. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for your insight. Thank you, Kimberly, for your insight. Thank you, Dr. Harris. And thank you, Dr. Richardson. It has been an honor moderating this conversation. Once again,
Moderator.
oh,
Yeah,
my pleasure.
thank you,
My
Maxine.
pleasure.
Great
My
job.
pleasure.
Thanks
This
to
was-
all who participated and all the questions and the love in the chat too.
Yes.
I always
was
appreciate
on
that. It feels good. The chat was on fire and it felt good reading.
I loved it. I loved it. All right, ladies. Well, I want to end with I try to end on a positive all the time. I have a great quote. It's from Shirley Chisholm. She's quoted as saying, if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. All right, ladies, have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all. Thanks everyone joining.
We will be
Bye-bye.
sharing the link for this wonderful conversation. Look forward to seeing it in the next couple of weeks. I know I'll be sharing it on LinkedIn. So you guys just look out for that. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.